Good morning. This is episode number 4, and we're going to be in the state of Arkansas this week. My name is Meg, and this podcast is called Pay Attention, Y'all. I'm not going to lie, I have been recording this episode for over 2 weeks. I think it was almost 3 weeks actually, and I just keep finding more and more stuff, and I'm trying to make it better. I'm trying to make the quality better. I'm trying to add in actual news clippings and interviews, and it's a lot to do, and I really commend anybody that does a podcast that adds in clips and videos because it just is a lot of work. And I've done it over and over again, and it's just, I think today's the day. I'm just going to go with my story, go with what I know, and do my best to present this case to be as followed as easily as possible. And I want to do the child justice, obviously. That's why we're doing these tough cases to listen to, is just to bring more awareness of situations like this and learn from the mistakes of others and learn how to pick up on other cues and hints when someone could be going through a child abuse or domestic situation. Each week I'm going to be in a different state, and I'm going in alphabetical order. So far we've covered Alabama, Alaska, and Arizona, and this week we are moving to the state of Arkansas. I was hoping to have updates for the Alabama person who murdered her son and daughter, but they didn't show up to court. I don't really understand. All I will say is it was their court date on Wednesday, April 9th, and they didn't show up. Their attorneys came and said they just weren't showing up because they were already indicted. I don't really understand why was the court just not canceled? Why was nobody made aware of that if they're already indicted for their crimes? I don't really know. I don't get all that. And then in Alaska, we were supposed to be getting some answers with Mandy Hill and Abraham Lambert, and they were the couple that committed a bunch of different crimes against their children. And I cannot find any update. I've looked everywhere, from Google to YouTube. I've just searched the webs and I cannot find any update. So I don't know what's happening there because it was supposed to be on Friday, April 11th. I don't know. I'm confused, but that's all. So no updates. Just wanted to let you know I was keeping an eye out for that this weekend, but there was nothing to update you on besides that. As y'all know, I'm new to this. I'm not very good or skilled at it, so I'm going to be looking at my notes. Some are handwritten because I'm old, but also I have some on my iPad too, and for the most part I'm just going to use my memory because that's why I've been getting so caught up with having to delete parts of videos and then edit it to go back and correct myself because of the way I sound, or I get a date wrong, which it is important to get dates right, so I do need to correct myself with that, but I'm just getting in my head too much. And so today I decided I'm doing it as is, and we're going to go with it, and I'll add clips as I can, and I'm just going to get this one posted, and every week I'll get better and better, hopefully. Every case that we have covered and are going to cover on this podcast are obviously going to be really difficult to listen to. Anytime there's a crime being committed against a child, it's obviously going to be tough. It's a tough thing. It's just hard to imagine somebody being so cruel and inhumane to something so tiny and innocent. However, this story that I'm covering this week is one that is just truly a nightmare that I feel we can relate to in some way, because not only is there abuse, sexual assault, rape, murder, all those horrific things, but there's also behind the scenes of just betrayal and lack of just breaking trust, betrayal, loss of friendships and family. It's just a very sad case. And I guess before I go into it anymore, we are in Arkansas this week, and this is the case of Jersey Bridgeman.
She's got shoulder-length blonde hair, the brightest blue eyes you've ever seen in your entire life.
She was in kindergarten and doing great.
Gone. She's vanished.
And then we lost her.
Jersey's greatest joy was being a big sister to Leah. They even celebrated their birthdays together.
Happy birthday to you.
Sadly, this one would be the last.
There's a lot of people in this case, okay? So I'm going to try to be as clear as possible. But if there's any confusion, you can comment and ask me a question, or I mean, probably you could search it yourself if you want to. I feel like I have most of the information in my brain. It's just presenting it is way harder to do than it seems. So, Jersey Bridgeman was born November 14th, 2006 in Bentonville, Arkansas, to her dad David and her mother Desiree Bridgeman. About 3 years later, she had a little sister. Her name was Lee or Leah. She went by both, so I'll probably use them interchangeably. So I like the details on a podcast, so I wanted just to give this information to you that's not totally relevant, but I think it's helpful to know. So Bentonville is considered to be a really small town. It had about, one article said 35,000 people, one said 60,000. So it wasn't super small, but it was small enough. There was, I think, about 15 elementary schools. And Jersey, at the time of all this taking place, is actually going to be in kindergarten at Sugar Creek Elementary School. So when she was about 5 years old, her parents ended up getting a divorce, and so they had 50-50 custody. So she would spend half the time with her mom, Desiree, and the other time with her father, David. David eventually got remarried to a woman named Angela, or Jana, Jana, if you look this case up, and she brought 2 biological kids of her own. Some sources said it was their biological kids that she brought into the family, but others said it was hers that she brought in. So I don't really know what was said. When minors are involved, it's kind of hard to get a lot of the details about it. David got remarried to Angela, and then Desiree also had a new boyfriend named Brandon, and they moved in together as well. One evening, a family friend was visiting David and his wife Angela and their children. And again, lots of unclear information here, so I'm just going to give you the very basic description of what happened on this particular night. In March of 2012, a family friend was visiting David and Angela, and they were not home at the time. Angela and David were not home, but the friend was there. And while there, she heard like a whimpering and crying sound. And so, of course, like a normal, good human being, she was trying to figure out where that was coming from. When she walks down the hallway, she finds the source of the sadness, the sad noises, and she starts to open the door, and as the light creases in from the hallway, she's able to see a little girl that is bound to a dresser. The little girl is wearing like a makeshift belt around her neck and also around her ankles. Some sources also said the waist, but from my knowledge and the videos that I watched, I believe it was her neck and her ankles. There was not very much slack in this, so she couldn't stand up all the way if she wanted to move around. It was about 2 feet long, so she really just had to kind of sit like I am right now if you're watching YouTube, or if you're not, like sitting Indian style or on your knees, or just simply laying down on the ground. Thankfully, this woman immediately took the collar off of Jersey and set her free, called 911, thank the Lord, because I would be so mad if this friend ended up being involved somehow or didn't report this because she didn't want to cause problems with her friendship. But thankfully, she was like, F this, I'm calling the police right now. Now, when the police arrive, David and Angela are back at the house now, and they start to ask some questions. They explain that they got a phone call about their daughter being collared and tied to a dresser, and here's what their excuse is, okay? You know, these idiots always have the best excuses for their form of abuse to their child. They said that they did this to protect Jersey. They said that they had to tie her to a dresser because she was a sleepwalker. And one time she went and got in a medicine cabinet. Another time she got in some cleaning supplies. They even said one time she got a knife out of the kitchen and was walking around with a knife in the air through the house. Now, I am a mom of 3 boys. My middle child is an older twin, and he is so wild. He's like Houdini. He's so strong. He literally can climb out of any. He's just a handful, okay? A lovely handful. But for me, I do have fear of him. You know, at one point it was out of the crib, and then now it's out of the bedroom at night, and now it's out of the house, then out of the backyard. You know, it goes on and on as they get older. But I've never considered locking him in a collar on a dresser so he couldn't get out. If you are a parent and you are trying to figure out how to keep your kid contained, don't do that. Don't do the dresser chaining situation. And if I have to tell you that, then that's not good. I personally just use a childproof doorknob thing on the inside of their room so they can't get out. And then we also have like the straps above the doors so they can't exit the home. We have an alarm system. I mean, we've tried to make this house as safe as possible for my kids. And that is to keep them safe and to protect them, because they're almost 4 and 5 years old, and they're curious, and they're boys, and they're wild, and they're crazy. So I'm doing it to protect them. I'm not doing it to harm them. I'm baffled that David and Angela thought this was a good excuse to tell the police officers. Like, okay. Not only was she chained to the dresser wearing a dog collar and a belt, the room was disgusting. The officers ended up going in to see where she was being held, and there was dirty clothes everywhere. She was literally sleeping in her own filth, her own poop and pee. Then dirty clothes are on the floor. It stinks in there. She stinks. She has rashes. Apparently this couple had a lot of dogs. And I'm also going to let one of the neighbors who actually reported what she assumed was child abuse to the Family Department of Human Services. And you'll hear that they did absolutely nothing, which I know is not a surprise, because it's far too common that CPS does nothing in cases like this. I never will understand how you choose a career to literally help protect children and better their lives and save them from abusive and neglectful situations, but you don't do your job. Like, I know it's busy. It's a busy job, unfortunately, but let's do better so we stop having the same things done over and over and over again, and case by case by case. So listen to what David and Angela's neighbor said about Jersey.
Ashley Philbeck's family lived next door to the Bridgemans when they all lived in an apartment complex. And because of what she saw then, Ashley says she was not surprised to hear of Jersey's death.
I was just so mad because, you know.
But you never dreamed that
I never knew
Jersey would end up like this.
I never knew she'd end up dead, you know. And I should have just grabbed her out of that house and took her to, you know, but I'm not even sure if the cops would have done anything. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, because they have to have proof, but, you know, the cops have been there before. In
2011, when Jersey was staying with her father and stepmom, Ashley says she can't believe what she witnessed.
They wouldn't feed her because she was always in trouble, you know. And she'd always get up through the middle of the night and go to the fridge and stuff, you know. And it was to eat, so she could eat because she was hungry.
So you know that you called DHS because you just thought this is just so wrong.
I had to do something, you know. I mean, I couldn't just walk up in there and take her out of the house, you know. I did what I thought what I should do, you know, but it was like no help at all.
Philbeck says she was shocked by the response of the DHS agent.
You know, we told DHS every little detail, everything wrong, you know, and all they did was put a card on the door. That's all they did.
I asked her reaction of seeing and hearing about the child abuse incident that sent Jersey's father and stepmom to prison.
It did not surprise me. It did not surprise me one bit. Like, I almost made a visitation into jail to go speak to the parents because I was so angry.
And when Jersey went back to live with her biological mother, Desiree Bridgeman, Ashley couldn't believe it.
I knew from talking to her that they had at least 12 animals, and I've witnessed the rashes all over. They even said it was scabies. And I even seen the cream that they put on this little girl because she was head to toe, broke out in rashes and all kinds of stuff. And it was because the filth. I promise you on my kid's life, I witnessed this.
I also forgot to mention that David had a very, very big drug user with marijuana and meth. And he later says in an interview that that's what really led to the abuse of his daughter, Jersey, was that he was unemployed, poor, and just living high as a kite and didn't want to care for her. And even at one point he said that he couldn't afford a baby gate, and so that was the other reason why she was tied to a dresser. But, like, she's 5 years old. A baby gate's not going to keep her in, sir. And also, if you can afford meth and marijuana, I think you can probably afford a $50 baby gate. But again, you're dumb.
David Bridgeman is in prison.
She meant a whole lot to me.
Of course, David and Angela were then arrested in March of 2012, and David was sentenced to 18 years in prison, and Angela was sentenced to 12 years in prison. It's unknown where the other two children are. If I'm assuming probably with their biological father if David was not the biological father. But I have no idea. Again, anything with minors, they try to protect their names and what's going on with them. So I'm not sure about those two. I'm going to share part of the clip where David was interviewed from prison so you can hear a little bit more about what he has to say.
What's going through your mind right now?
A lot of hate, regret, anger, everything.
He received an 18-year sentence last year for chaining Jersey to a dresser.
Help us understand what led you to that point.
The drugs.
You think the drugs had a lot to do with it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, a whole lot to do with it.
Bridgeman blamed a lot of his poor judgment on his meth and marijuana use, which he says happened here in the same house where Jersey and her sisters live with their father and his wife.
Like I said, I stopped for a couple years, and I don't know why I started back up, because it was the best time of my life when I wasn't smoking.
How so?
I don't know. I mean, we did a lot more with our kids, and we had more money, of course. Be able to take them out and do things, buy them things that they needed.
Bridgeman fought tears and shook nervously throughout our 35-minute interview, and during most of his answers, he kept his eye on Jersey. He said it was hard to forget all of his mistakes and everything he put her through.
What exactly do you mean by that?
Being placed with other people other than their family, DHS custody and child services. That I'm not a bad person. I mean, like I said, I made my mistakes. I'm the one that's got to live with it the rest of my life.
Jersey did move in full-time with her mom Desiree, her boyfriend Brandon, and her little sister Leah. In my mind, I was kind of curious if Desiree had any involvement or knowledge of the abuse that was being committed against Jersey when she would go to her father's house. I didn't know if Jersey would tell her that, or if she would kind of be hesitant to go back over there, if she ever mentioned anything, if she ever had marks on her. Apparently, Desiree had no clue that was happening, and I think I read at some point that Jersey was too scared to tell her mom about it because she didn't know what was going to happen. So I'm sure they were also playing some mind games on her there and threatening her of certain different. So Jersey is now living full-time at 608 Southeast A Street. I can't believe I said that right the first time in this video because it was a tongue twister and I would hate to have that address and have to repeat it every time somebody's like, oh, what's your address? 608 Southeast A Street in Bentonville, Arkansas. Her mom had her in counseling and her therapist just kept talking about how resilient Jersey was and how she had made so much improvement in such a short time. Her kindergarten teacher at Sugar Creek Elementary just said that Jersey grew so much. She was so brave, so kind, like an old soul. All right, I'm just going to give a little update here so we're all on the same page. Desiree is Jersey's mother. Brandon is the boyfriend. David is the father. Angela is the stepmother. We're going to bring a couple more people into the story now. Again, to Bentonville, Arkansas, 608 Southeast A Street. We're moving into what is described to be a trailer. It doesn't look what you imagine a trailer to look like. I feel like there's some in the street that look like a trailer park, like the rectangular building. But these kind of it doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to set the scene for you, and you'll see some in the videos I'm going to share, but they look a little bit different. Either way, it's a very small home. However, it was a happy home. It was a healthy home, and it was something totally exciting and freeing for Jersey to experience living in the same place full-time with a loving mother who took care of her and did everything for her. And also, she loved her neighbor. She met a little boy. He was 4 years old, and so she was only 5. So, of course, they play together a lot. And it just so happens that his parents, Amanda and Zachary, are Desiree's best friends. Specifically Amanda. Amanda and Desiree are best friends. Now, if we just want to pause and talk about that being the dream as being next door neighbors to your friend so you can raise your kids together, play dates all the time without having to coordinate nap schedules and transportation and meeting places. You literally can just walk right across one house down and just enjoy time with your friend and their kids as well. At the time, Desiree was working at an Easy Mart, which I think is like I would assume like a gas station, convenience store, and she was doing the night shift there. So she would often go to work around 5 p.m. and not come back until like 11:30 p.m. or 12:30 a.m. And during this time, she was very thankful and very blessed that she could just send the girls over to Amanda and Zachary Hawley's house so they could watch them while she was at work. And it was perfect. The girls wanted to be there, they had fun, and she didn't have to pay for childcare. She's trying to save money to buy her own house one day, so it was just the best situation that you could ever imagine. There's not too much known about Amanda Hawley, but I do want to talk a little bit about Zachary Hawley. So Zachary was born in October of 1984 to his mom, and her name is Ginger. His mom was in a committed relationship for about 10 years, and I'm not sure if that relationship was with Zachary's father or if that was with another man, around the same time. But she was with someone for about 10 years. And I'm going to let her describe to you what that was like. But she had a severe drug addiction. She was also said to drink alcohol and do drugs while she was pregnant with Zachary. And there's just a lot there, but I'm going to let her go into that and let her tell her side of the story instead of me.
Most of us know someone with cancer. Child abuse is occurring at a rate 10 times greater. It is like a disease in that it often passes from generation to generation. This story centers around a most extreme case. It came to a head right here in this Bentonville neighborhood. Tonight, for the first time, we're hearing the story from those who know exactly what happened. It begins more than 2 decades ago, far away from here.
I was the functioning drug addict. I was close to doing, an 8-ball a day. That's a lot.
Ginger Simmons is living in Bakersfield, California when she tries meth for the first time.
I have an addictive personality. Didn't know that then, but I do.
She had just moved there from her hometown of Rogers as a single mom with her 1-year-old son, Zachary Hawley.
I was up for 10, 12, 15 days after that, and I was hooked after that.
She begins a relationship with a man that turns into a 10-year blur of drugs and abuse.
Did you ever see him hurt your kids?
Yes.
In what way?
Beating them.
Over the course of Zachary's childhood, DHS and local police are called to investigate claims of his abuse more than a dozen times. Zachary tells investigators that his mother, stepfather, and brother are abusing him, ranging from neglect to physical to sexual abuse.
I didn't know there were that many cases open against me. Yeah, I was out there.
Court records show Zachary lived in 9 different homes and transferred schools 23 times throughout his childhood. In time for him to start high school, Ginger and Zach moved back to Northwest Arkansas.
Can you even imagine moving 9 times as a child, going to 23 different elementary schools? That is insane. That is crazy to me. And they were moving around like that because of the drugs, because of the suspected abuse, which it wasn't suspected, it was obviously known. They had 12 visits from DHS coming there. And I love how Ginger in that video was like, I had no idea there was 12 cases open. I'm like, sweetie, you were up in the cloud. And honestly, it's so sad. I do feel bad for Zachary as a child. Like, he had no hope because his mom was totally oblivious to everything, or ignorant. I'm not sure. I have no idea. But after moving so many times, he eventually dropped out of school. So he doesn't not have a high school education. He's not very smart. He can't even spell his own middle name. It's honestly truly a miracle he found a woman to love him and give him a family, because that's a win. But that's just wow. Wow. It's a few months that had gone by at this point, and Jersey and her sister called Zachary Hall Uncle Zach. Aunt Amanda, they were literally together daily. They would babysit for Desiree often, like I mentioned, when she was at work. They would feed them, bathe them, put them in their jammies, get them cozy, and then go help tuck them in their rooms whenever Desiree got home from work. So it was no different on November 19th of 2012. Desiree had a shift at the Easy Mart, so she took Leah and Jersey over to Amanda and Zachary's house. She dropped them off like she always did. They were there, they played, they ate, they took a bath. They had a normal time like any other night that they were there. And when Desiree got off of work around 11:30 p.m., she went over to Amanda and Zachary's house to grab her daughters and then go tuck them in across the street or next door to her house. So Desiree said she carried Leah and Zachary carried Jersey. They walked over, walked in the house. He helped lay the girls down, offered to lay with them so she could go take a shower and go to bed because she was exhausted, obviously. So around midnight, he leaves the girls in the room. They shared a room at the time, and he walked back over to his house and he went to bed. At some point in the night, Leah, the younger sister, had a bad dream and got scared. So Desiree went in and just swooped her out of the bed and took her to go sleep with her in her room so that she didn't disrupt Jersey. They had school the next day. You know, nobody wants to wake up a kid. Trust me, I do the same thing. November 20th rolls around and it's 6:30 in the morning and Desiree is like, crap, I'm running behind. I need to get up. I've got to get Jersey's lunch ready for school, her clothes, do the laundry. You know how it is. I swear it's the most chaotic times in the morning before church or before school where it's just insane. And it's always the school days or church days where your kids will actually sleep in. And then the weekend, it's like, no, you're up or ready to go play. You know, it's so frustrating. So anyways, she's trying to get Jersey's things together. She goes in to wake her up. And when she opens the door, Jersey's not in her bed anymore. You can probably just already feel that sinking feeling in your gut of opening your child's door to see an empty room. Desiree begins to run around the house frantically, looking under beds, couches, closets, pantry, you name it. She's searching everywhere to see if she can find Jersey. She can't find her anywhere. So she calls her mom, freaking out. Jersey's lost. She's not here. She's missing. I need help. Her mom's like, did you check these places? And Desiree's like, yes, Mom, I freaking checked everywhere. So she runs out her front door and then goes straight to Amanda and Zachary's house. Panicked, hoping that Jersey walked over there that morning to visit with her aunt and uncle. And Amanda very quickly says, I have not seen her today. The last time I saw her was when you and Zachary carried her home last night. So around 6:46 a.m., so about 16 minutes after they couldn't find Jersey, Desiree calls 911. Thankfully, the police arrive very quickly and they are on the scene. The investigation is beginning. They're hoping that Jersey is just went on a walk or something. I don't know. It's hard for me to... I don't live in a small town, and I also, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, literally have locks and child locks and an alarm system on every door in my house. So I feel confident and safe enough to think that my child couldn't leave without me knowing, but I also don't think that they would just be like, hey, we're going to go on a walk at 6:30 in the morning. You know, I think they're more like, I want to watch a show. I want some breakfast. I want some drink, you know, I don't know. So, but they were hoping, they were trying to be optimistic. They were looking in the backyard. They were walking around asking neighbors if they had seen Jersey. When they are searching and speaking with neighbors, they, of course, start to speak to Amanda and Zachary Holly, the next door neighbors and best friends. And Zachary and Amanda are both totally in a frantic. They're just visibly shaken. They're so nervous. They're scared. Of course, they're being super cooperative, answering any questions that need to be answered. They want to do anything they can to help find Jersey. While they're asking about their involvement with Jersey's life, they tell them the same thing that I've already described to you. We're like an aunt and uncle to her. We see her all the time. We babysit for all the time. And they're like, actually, in fact, last night, we watched Jersey and her little sister, Leah, while Desiree was at work at the Easy Mart. And we do that all the time. We carried her back. And it's like they were just explaining what they did. And then Zachary said, oh, but I do want to mention something. Around 3:35 in the morning, I woke up and had a really bad stomach ache. And so I had to go to Easy Mart to get some Pepto-Bismol. I don't know why I think it's funny. I guess if you have a stomach ache, you got to do what you got to do. But it just, I don't know that I would personally walk to a gas station at 3:30 in the morning to get Pepto. I think I might maybe see what I have at home or let it run its course. I don't know, but you won't catch me walking down the highway to get to the Easy Mart. I will tell you that. Zachary and Amanda and pretty much all the neighbors, Desiree's mom, Jersey's grandma, Leah's grandma, everybody's coming into action to help search for her, to figure out where she is, where she could be. So one of the officers, after searching Desiree's house up and down, they moved to Zachary and Amanda's house, searched that up and down. There's no sign of her. Well, then something catches his eye, and he looks and he notices that an abandoned house that's like right in the middle of the Hollies and Desiree's house, the back door is like slightly open, just like a few inches, like slightly ajar. So he thought maybe like Jersey went in to play in this abandoned house or something. And honestly, I would have. That would be me. If I lived next door to an abandoned house, that would be, oh, I'm obsessed with it now. I love to go in abandoned buildings. I love to go look through stuff, old historic things. It's my jam. So I think that was a very reasonable thing for the officer to be like, hey, she might have just run off to go explore in this abandoned house back here. So they make their way over there, and when he walks in, he realizes it looks like, your typical abandoned house. Gross, trash, bugs, rats, dirty floors, stinky. He's going through all the rooms looking, doesn't see anything, doesn't really see any sign actually of like foul play or broken windows or anything. But again, the door was open, so who's to say? So he goes in one of the last bedrooms, and in the closet, he finds a little girl naked, face down, with pajama bottoms wrapped around her neck. So this case quickly went from a missing person to now a homicide investigation. When the police exits the house, Desiree immediately knows something isn't good. She can tell the look on his face is just not one of happiness, but it also wasn't one of just like nonchalant, like nothing. She knew in that moment that Jersey was in that house, and so she immediately started to ask questions like, where is she? What is she doing? Who is she with? Why is she in there? Can I go talk to her? And the officer just says, no, you cannot go in there, and we can't answer any questions right now. And as a mom, I don't know what I would do, but in my mind, I feel like I would be like, hey, I'm going in there one way or the other, and I'm going to go get my child. It's not really known why this is the case, but for some reason, it was Desiree's father that identified the little body in the closet in the abandoned house as Jersey Bridgman's 6-year-old body. I mean, it's horrific. It's something unimaginable that I wish upon nobody. I just can't even imagine. The thought of the feeling of being a mom and walking in or hearing that your daughter is naked on the floor, face down, strangled. Like, how do you come back from that? How are you, I don't know. I commend anybody that's had a loss of a child in any manner, but especially something like this. I'm just like, wow, you have a strength that only God can give you, because I have no idea how you would be able to move on past that. It's just unfathomable. Since this is now a homicide investigation, the police are still going door to door now. They're trying to obviously not let anybody know about it yet, but of course the street is lit up with red and blue flashing lights. It's still morning time, but it's still a very busy scene, very chaotic. Coroners are there arriving. Her little body is put on a stretcher and taken to the examiner's office to have an autopsy done. During this time, Zachary was so shaken, so upset, couldn't believe this happened. He goes up to one of the officers and is like, hey, I was with her last night. I want to go ahead and clear my name. I'm going to give you the clothes I wore last night, and you can even do like a cheek swab and get my DNA. You can do whatever you want. I want to clear my name. I want to help figure out who did this to Jersey. Of course, the police are like, yeah, please, sweet. This is like, honestly, best case situation is to have willing people come forward and do this like right now so we can figure out who did this to Jersey. So they take his sweep, they take the swab of his cheek, and they also take his clothing, and they send that over to the lab as well. So this was all taking place on November 20th. A couple days later, they were coming back to question Zachary and Amanda a little bit more because, as we all know, they always start to do the investigation with the closest family, right? So it wasn't her dad or stepmom this time because they were currently incarcerated. They definitely looked at Desiree's new boyfriend, Brandon, because, of course, he's not blood related. He's very new. He's young. But he had a solid alibi and he actually was at work. He also worked the night shift. The next thing is they want to talk to the best friend, the quote unquote aunt and uncle. So they go over, and this time Zachary is not as willing to just give up information. He tells them that he already did what he needed to do. He already gave them the DNA. He gave them his clothing. Like, he says, I'm not talking to you unless I have an attorney present and also until I hear back from the DNA results. I imagine Amanda giving him like a little bit of side eye, like, why would you not do anything they're asking or answer any questions so we can hopefully find who did this to Jersey? And I think the officers was like, yeah, you're right. You are definitely should have an attorney present where that definitely makes sense. I always will have an attorney, even if I know I'm totally innocent. I'm going to ask for one because I will screw myself so quickly. They don't really get anywhere further there with Zachary, so they leave. Well, Amanda is really just like, Zachary, if you don't go do a polygraph test for this police station, we're done. Like, what are you doing? Why would you not be willing to do this? So it got to the point where she eventually told him he was not going to have anywhere to live if he didn't go do this polygraph. She was tired of the media being at her house, tired of police officers coming over. She has 2 kids of her own. She's trying to help her friend grieve and also raise her other daughter, Leah. I mean, there's just so much happening. And so the least Zachary could do was just help out a little bit, bro, okay? But eventually he shows up to the police station and he's like, hey, I'm here. I want to do the polygraph. I want to talk to the police. So the police are like, okay, this is strange because literally the other day you wanted an attorney. And they're like, do you have an attorney? And he said, no, I just want to do the polygraph to clear my name. Now, I don't know if a lot of y'all know that polygraphs are like inadmissible in court. So you can do it. And I feel like it's more of a scare tactic. And maybe it helps the officers sometimes get a little bit more clarification on a case or a person, at least, a person of interest. But you can't take it into court. There's so many factors that lead to people either failing it or passing the test. As we know, Zachary wasn't super bright. He wasn't very smart. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know if he just didn't know that DNA could be tested against things. I don't know if he only thought it could be blood that was tested against fibers. I have no idea, but it's odd to me that he was so willing to give his DNA and his clothing, but not willing to do a polygraph. So, because one is 100% evidence and one is not. So, it's just weird that he was hesitant to do the second thing. I literally think he was just stupid and didn't realize that, and that's why he was so mixed up in his mind about this. The investigation is still ongoing. People are still trying to figure out who would have done this, who would have come to this little town and do such a horrific thing to Jersey. And it was the day of her visitation, which was on November 26th. Hundreds and hundreds of people were going to pay their respects, celebrate her very short and honestly tragic life. 6 years. She had some bright moments, but also just a lot of tragic things happened to her in such a small time frame. As people were walking into the traffic, I hope you're not walking into the traffic. As all the people are walking into the chapel, the police officers arrive and they see Zachary Hawley going up the stairs to enter the chapel, and they immediately go and apprehend him. Of course, he's caught off guard and he's like, hey, what are you doing? I'm trying to go to the visitation. And they said, well, we have to talk to you about something. Your polygraph showed signs of deception, and you failed the polygraph. And he tries to say, well, I was nervous. I didn't know. I don't have a high IQ. Whatever, giving all the excuses. And then they said, well, also, Zachary, we got the autopsy results back and the DNA samples results back. Your semen and your DNA was inside and outside of Jersey Bridgeman's body. Not only that, but her blood was on your shirt. But I've loved to see the look on his face because what are you going to say? Like, surely, this is where I go back to him just being dumb. Like, you have 2 kids of your own. Surely you know what semen is and that DNA is in that. I know he's not very bright, but he's a 28-year-old man. You would think that's common knowledge that carries literally your DNA. Of course, he's like, it wasn't me. It just was there because I watch her. That's why I gave you my stuff so willingly. I've been open. I've been helpful. Like, of course her DNA's on my clothing or in my house. I carried her around that night. And they're like, bro, it was your semen. It was your semen. I'm just gonna, whatever. Like, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't know what that word is. I was gonna mention some other words, but I think it's okay. Y'all are smarter than he is. So anyways, he's immediately arrested at the visitation for Jersey. So he's taken to the Benton County Jail where he continues to say it wasn't him. He didn't do it. He was being set up. He was being framed. I wonder, too, if Desiree was made aware of this arrest before Jersey's visitation. Because I kind of hope not. I hope that she was able to at least process the visitation and visit with people that were there to honor Jersey and visit with her and the family, so that she could do that without having to literally want to go run out and beat the crap out of someone, or, like finding out your best friend's husband literally raped and murdered your little girl, someone that you trusted, someone that watched your kids, bathed your kids, fed your kids, put them to bed at night. Like, that's who they arrested, and they have enough evidence of that. They have his sperm on her and in her little body. Are you kidding me? Like, the way that she would have run out of that chapel. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume she didn't know until after. Maybe a police officer just hung around the back and waited until that was over, at least out of respect. Eventually, after some time, Zachary knew he was screwed. He realized that, semen, that does have DNA. So does blood. Oh, okay. He gets it together. He realizes they really spell it out for him. Like, sweetie, it's your DNA. And they talk about the autopsy, and Jersey died of asphyxiation. And they also talk about how she had claw marks going down her neck, like she was pulling at the pajama pants that she was wearing that he tied around her neck, trying to pull them off. There was blood and scratches coming from her neck. This is so graphic. I'm not even going to go into detail. We're all adults here, and we all know what this would mean. But apparently, Jersey was not a willing participant to engage in a sexual act, and she couldn't be willing anyways because she's 6 years old. Like, hello. So of course she was scared and she was fighting back. And so he said whenever he took off her pants and her clothing, that's when he tried to tie her up so that she couldn't kick him and move anymore and try to get away. So she was alive during all this, just bound essentially, and he continues to rape her in multiple areas, and she had a lot of trauma in her genital region. That's all I'm going to say. And it's just disgusting. Like, it makes me want, So he's in the jail. The funeral is the next day on February 27th, and he has the audacity to ask to attend the funeral, to ask if he can leave the jail that he just got to go to Jersey Bridgeman's funeral, the girl he literally raped and murdered a week ago. Thankfully, that was denied, and also thankfully, another prisoner kicked his butt that day. You know how they say people that commit sex crimes against children get the worst of the worst behind bars? Yeah, I hope that is true, and I hope he has gotten beat up multiple times while in prison. But I love the guy that beat him up, was only there for like a minor crime, obviously got more time added, unfortunately, but I feel like they should all have like one grace. Like, okay, I beat this dude up because of what he did. Don't give me more time. It was my one time. I had to get it out of my system, and I won't do it again. But he did say, I heard what he did to that little girl. I mean, it was a well-popular case, small town. He knew what happened, and he was like, I have a daughter. I have a daughter the same age as Jersey, and it ticked me off. So I went and beat the crap out of him. So all of this had just taken place in November of 2012. Jersey had just turned 12 years old and celebrated her birthday, and people said that while investigators were coming and going and police cars were there, people were going to leave like purple flowers and balloons and stuff and stuffed animals in honor of Jersey. But they said that that was so sad to see was that her bicycle was still in the front yard and there was still a happy birthday balloon up in front of the house. And it just goes to show like how innocent of a child she was. I mean, every kid is. That just like really made me sad. After Zachary's arrest, the officers were kind of just going around the neighborhood seeing if they knew anything else about Zachary, and they all were like, we would have never expected this of him. We never ever would have expected he would murder anyone, let alone Jersey. They said that he loved Jersey like his own daughter, and they were together all the time. And that leads me to really question if this was a one-time offense, right? So like he's with Jersey and her sister and his 2 children all the time. And it just seems like a very big escalation to go to raping and murdering a little girl that you apparently love so much. Like, has he been doing this before? Was he ever touching her or any other child? It just seems wild that this would be the first major crime he committed, to go to such a huge length to do what he did and ruin his own family, his marriage, his friendship, everything. I mean, he literally ruined his life over what? Over why? For what? So that's why I feel like he had to, I don't know if it was premeditated or not, but I just feel like some other stuff might have been happening. And also poor Jersey, because she was abused at the hands of her dad and then abused at the hands of who she considered an uncle. And she never knew love from a man. And that just breaks my heart that every man she trusted and had a relationship totally took advantage of her and abused her, and eventually her life ended because of that. Zachary Hawley was then charged with rape, capital murder, burglary, and kidnapping. As we all know, court can be delayed for a variety of reasons, and it's super frustrating because we just want this to be done. The family wants justice for what happened to their family member or friend. And it's really frustrating when it keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And it was January 7th that they actually told Zachary that he was eligible for the death penalty. It was a capital murder case along with other terrible, terrible charges. And this state does have the death penalty. At some point, he ended up filing a petition called Rule 37. And apparently that is a petition that's pretty much saying that your counsel, his court-appointed attorney, was not efficient in helping him with his case. And he gave other reasons that are dumb about burglary and just lowering charges of stuff, but it was all just ignored by the judge. Nothing was ever granted. He was still going back to prison. Eventually, one of his first court-appointed attorney had to quit or resign because he said he was struggling really badly with alcohol addiction and did not think he was in the mental state to be able to go to a murder trial and actually do his job and do justice for the victim or even for his client. So that postponed the case again. We got a new attorney coming in with Zachary, and his name is Robbie Golden. And Robbie was like, I need an extension. This is way too much. I have thousands and thousands of things to go through, hundreds of hours of research and study. I have to look through autopsy and lab results and just everything. And he was like, I need it to be prolonged even further. So moving on now, we're in May of 2015, and the jury is selected. We're in court, and they find him guilty of all 4 charges: rape, burglary, kidnapping, and capital murder. And I love that his attorney literally was like, I wish I could stand up here and yell, he's innocent, he didn't do this, he had nothing to do with this. And then he says after, but I can't do that on this case. My client is not very smart. He doesn't even know how to spell his middle name. His semen was on the clothing and in the body of Jersey Bridgeman. He definitely did do it, but what I'm going to argue is that it wasn't premeditated. It happened, whatever the other word is. And honestly, that pisses me off, okay? It doesn't matter if he planned it for years or a day or not, or if it just happened in the heat of the moment, whatever that is. He literally walked into his neighbor's house, someone that he loved like a daughter, wakes her up. She groggily looks at him and says, Uncle Zach. He's like, come with me. Carries her in her little pajamas to an abandoned building, pulls off her clothes, rapes her so bad, she has so much trauma down there, and scratching at her neck, ties her, suffocates her, leaves her little body there, and then joins in the investigation like he's trying to help figure out what happened to her and who did it. Like, are you kidding me? Either way, planned or not planned, you did it, Zachary. You did it. And I would love to know, as a father of 2, if someone broke into your home, took one of your children, brutally raped them, killed them, and left them alone, and then jumped back in acting like he didn't know anything about it, what would you think their punishment should be, Zachary? Tell me. Please, tell me. So there was multiple witnesses that did come to the murder trial. That was in May of 2015. And the first witness was the lab examiner, and she just reviewed that the pajama shirt had blood and Zachary's semen on it. Then the DNA examiner said that he found semen in the vagina and also the rectum. The third witness was the associate medical examiner, and he actually showed pictures of Jersey's body to the jury and everyone in the court. And they said that there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. And Zachary just sat there and looked with no emotion. Just the fourth witness, I think there was 11 total, and I didn't read all of them, but one of the last ones, I'm sorry, it was not the fourth, it was the last witness, was a DHS worker that was actually involved with Zachary's upbringing when he lived in California, while he was experiencing the physical, emotional, and sexual abuse at the hands of his mom, other men, and his older brother. She came to attend court in Arkansas as a witness for Zachary, and she admitted to everyone in court that she and the state of California failed Zachary, and she does believe that if they would have done the right thing and would have actually removed him from the home and got him the help that he needed, that this would have been prevented. And that's just a reminder of how important this all is. This is why we're doing it. I say it every week. It's only week 4, but I say it every time. We have to pay attention, y'all. We have to help people that can't help themselves. And I don't know what else would have happened if Zachary did get the help he needed. Maybe he would still have some psychological issues, but maybe not. Maybe if he had a loving family that could raise him and discipline him and guide him in the right direction to know what was right and wrong and how to handle your emotions and handle feelings and urges, which is weird. If you have an urge to hurt or touch a little child like that, is like, it's so, oh my goodness. So after this, the state had rested his case, and the jury found him guilty on all of those charges, like I had mentioned, and he actually was sentenced to death. Desiree was happy with that verdict and happy that he was sentenced to death. She said it feels like a milestone, and now she can actually go back to remembering Jersey and the happy moments they had and not focusing on trial and court dates and having to relive and rehear all that Jersey endured in her life, and especially her last moment of life. One of Jersey's favorite things to say about like how much she loved someone was like, I love you to the moon and back. And she said that night, Jersey was like, Mommy, I love you to the moon and back. Good night. And that was the last thing that she ever said to her mom.
Yeah, she'd woke up a little bit and told me goodnight, and she loved me. Her favorite way of telling me that she loved me was she'd go, I love you to the moon and back.
Zachary Hawley is currently being held at Varner Supermax Prison in Arkansas. And I have a weird fascination with prisons, and so I wanted to share some information with you. There are 1,761 male inmates at this prison. Currently, there are 25 people on death row in the state of Arkansas, and Zachary Hawley is one of those 25 people. And to add a little bit about Desiree's story now of how she is, how they're doing, how Leah is. Desiree did end up getting married to her boyfriend Brandon, and now they have a daughter together named Elizabeth. So she's got Leah and Elizabeth that they're raising, and she says most days are getting easier, but she still has days where she doesn't even want to live anymore, but she only is for her 2 daughters now. And seems like they're doing good. They moved out of that house in that area, and I don't know exactly what city they're in now, but they are still in Arkansas, and I think they're doing the best that they can, and I'm glad that they have a new baby, Elizabeth, and hopefully creating a lot of new memories with them that will take away some of the pain of the past. I forgot to add this in the episode, and I said it somewhere, and I can't find the clip, and maybe I didn't even say it, and that's going to be pretty embarrassing at this point if I didn't say it, and I'm adding this at the end of the episode. But I had mentioned that I was hoping David was getting his butt kicked a lot during his prison time. So he got arrested in 2013, And so I was looking up when I was trying to see if his execution was scheduled, or it's not scheduled right now, as far as I can tell. I already don't know if I said that either in the earlier message, but as far as I can see, it is not scheduled. He's just kind of sitting and waiting on death row. But Mr. David here does seem to be getting in some trouble in prison, so I just thought y'all might like this positive note on the end of this episode. So he was arrested in May of 2015, he was put in prison in May of 2015, and since then, these are all the violations he's had in prison, okay? We're going to begin in January of 2020. Good old COVID. Under the influence. September of 2020, failure to obey order. Also unnecessary noise or play. Also sexual threats. Also insolence to a staff member. Insolence to a staff member. What do we think that means? Please pause. Insolence occurs when an employee mocks, insults, disrespects, or shows similar inappropriate behavior toward a manager or supervisor. So it's pretty much misconduct towards officer, I guess, is what one of his disciplinary violations was. All right, let me get back to his list. February of 2021, he had destruction of property, unauthorized use of state property or supplies. That was in February and in June of 2024. More destruction of property and trafficking and trading, all in June of 2024. So far, it looks like he has not done anything yet as of June of 2024. So he's almost been a year being a good boy in there, as he has not completed any program achievements, and he doesn't have any court orders of protection or no contact. So maybe I'll write him a little letter. Wouldn't that be crazy if I wrote a letter to an inmate like this and they actually responded? And I'm like, hey, I did a podcast about you. Actually, I'm kind of scared, but okay. They do have his mailing address on here, his P.O. box and everything. Yeah, it just says that his sentence is death. So he is currently on death row. I think I'm going to do it. And see if he actually responds. Actually, I want to say this before I end this. For capital murder, he got the death sentence. For kidnapping, he got life in prison. For rape, he got life in prison. And for residential burglary, he got 240 months. So either way, even if for some reason he did get off death row, he's going to be in jail for the rest of his life, or in prison for the rest of his life. Hopefully. My gosh, can you imagine if he got released? Also, one last thing. In one part of the story of Jersey, I accidentally said her 12th birthday, or she turned 12, and I meant 6. It was her 6th birthday. She's not 12. She was 6.